I would always bet on myself because I know myself best. I don't know the stock market the best. I'm always going to put my money into me. And it may be cocky, it may be egotistical, but I always say this, and I've said it to some crazy people before as well, and it makes me look like a bit of a mug, but I back this. The reality is that they are the exact same human being as you. They just chose different decisions. They just live a different life.
Merely a donkey. Nicholas, merely a donkey. Cut.
I would say that the one take that I'll have on this is talking about the return on investment here. And when I think about what you've said there, and the main point at the end is the return on investment, that's where your money should be focused on. When we think about the materialistic things, whether it's the shoes, whether it's the car, whether it's the watch, how do you quantify the return on investment? I mean, that's a thing that, I actually listened to something interesting the other day from, who was it? It was someone who's very wise that was speaking with Luke Belmar. Now, Luke Belmar is someone like who a lot of people don't like because he's quite polarizing, but he's got a lot of wise things to say. And I was surprised that this person had spoken with him. I can't really remember who it was, but the long story short was that Luke Belmar gave the advice of don't look for eternal. Oh, David Fogarty. Speaking of, you're good. You're speaking of David Fogarty. David Fogarty is the founder of the UDI, and he was saying that you shouldn't actually pay attention to the ROI on specific things. Now, in my mind, I would agree with him, but I'd also caveat that with saying that pay attention to the ROI when you're really needing to. Like, at our young, humble age of 20 years old, and for Alfio 19, we should be thinking about the ROI, but in the future, you kind of get into this mindset where, like, even the time that I spend with specific people becomes what's the ROI with spending time with those people, and it becomes much more transactional than it ever thought to be. And don't get me wrong, I do inherently believe things are transactional, although I would like to believe that, like, be aware that you should try and make things almost feel as if they're untransactional. And that's actually been a bit of a lesson with Jack and myself in our relationship, is like, we know that at the end of the day, the reason why we're friends is because it is a transaction. Either the time that we spend together is we feel better, or we feel, let's say Jack and I put in 2 hours, we feel like we get 5 hours back, or we feel like we at least get 5 hours back in terms of like a different type of compensation. So essentially what we put in is less than what we get out. And that's the type of thing that you want. That is return on investment. So in all things, that's why a friendship is actually quite difficult to manage when you think of it in a transaction. So for example, with Jack and I being so close and actually having a return on investment in specific things, like, how do we constitute that? Well, we basically just have to forget it. And it's like, the way that I get around it is, if I was to ever buy or do something for Jack, I have to completely forget about me doing it. Because as soon as I start to hold that against him or vice versa, then it's too transactional. Even though that happened and it's still a thing, you just have to forget about it. And that's the exact same with the boys behind the camera. If vice versa, I do something for them, they do something for me, we forget about it, because although everything is transactional, it's better to think about things not being transactional.
Caveat though.
Yeah.
Sort of, because we're more speaking on
Yeah.
what's important.
Yeah, what constitutes as ROI.
Yeah, exactly. And what's important when you're trying to build your empire and your finances. So
I think before you're talking about investing in yourself.
Yeah. That's where I was going to go next. That was probably just a point that I had actually only thought of when you said it again. I think that's a good point because, yeah, it is a bit of a caveat. But I'll go on to the point that you bring up now, which is investing in yourself. Now, I've always heard so much noise about investing in a high-interest bank account. I mean, that's pretty easy, to be fair. Anyone can do that. I can do it. Whether it's investing in stocks, crypto, Forex, whatever it is, you should be investing your money into something that gives you a high ROI. Now, I think that that's very relevant and it's good for people to do so. But in my opinion, for where I am and who I am, I would much rather bet on myself. And the reason why I think that I would much rather bet on myself is because I have much more control over myself than the stock market. And that's not necessarily to say that it's safer, the stock market, or vice versa. I just prefer to bet on myself because the amount of time that it takes for me to actually become good at investing in those specific things or educating myself on it, I've probably lost a lot of personal time that I could have spent with myself that I could get a higher ROI on. And for context, we're so there's like a facade of famous people where it's like they are subhuman. They've done things completely different to me, and I will never become them. The reality is that they are the exact same human being as you. They just chose different decisions. They just live a different life. And in this case, I would always bet on myself because I know myself best. I don't know the stock market the best. I'm always going to put my money into me. And it may be cocky, it may be egotistical, but I always say this, and I've said it to some crazy people before as well. And it makes me look like a bit of a mug, but I back this. And I actually spoke about it with Jack the other day, and we're talking about how like my blissful ignorance of the world helps me. I know that it is blissfully ignorant, but I also prefer to live in this blissful ignorance at times. But it's also, I don't reject reality. I'm also very, analytical with reality, but I prefer to live in my blissful ignorance. And if there was a room of 1 million people in that room, and let's say the goal was to do X objective, assuming that it's not biometric, I would bet on myself to do it. If we're all starting at a similar position, let's say it's a bunch of 20-year-olds who have just finished school, I would always bet on myself, assuming that we're all at a similar level. And it's egotistical, it's cocky of me, but I do bet on myself because I have so much proof and all of the attributes in betting on myself that I know it yields higher return. And in this case, I still firmly believe in my situation, if I was to put $100,000 into the stock market, real estate, or whatever, and I had the option to bet on myself and give myself the $100,000 to spend wisely and to invest in something that I can create, very much build myself, I'd give myself the 100K. And I stick by that. I stay by that. I'm yet to be proven otherwise. I'm very open to be proving otherwise. Situationally, whether Alfio is the exact same, would Alfio bet on yourself? Alfio, would you bet on yourself?
Yeah, for most things.
For most things? Charles?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. I think that trust is something that you build up with yourself. And I think that the conviction that you might bring to betting on yourself is different to the conviction Alfio brings. And it's also different to the conviction that I bring. And the reason why I'm so convicted is because I know when I say something, I do it. And if I fail to the expectation, I know that I'll at least be okay with that. And it's almost ties into what we were saying last week, Alfio, with Germany for me. And I explained to you how I actually didn't see Germany as like unsuccessful. I saw it as I didn't have an exact objective to go overseas and play in Germany. Although, no matter the outcome, whether it was good or bad, I mean, in my case, I actually was thinking about this yesterday because my dad said it was a really good question to ask Alfio.